Tonight, we finally get to a long overdue follow-up video that I've been meaning to make for quite a while. This is a part 2 of a comparison video I made featuring the Mesa Boogie Badlander 25 and the Mesa Boogie Recto-Verb 25. The first video I did was kind of a general quick and dirty tone comparison between these two little beasts. And in this video we're going to get a little deeper and more detailed with the sounds that I dial up. I'm going to go over the exact settings that I use for all the tones in both of these amps. And I'm also going to go over the vintage mode on the Recto-Verb. And also I just want to mention that the Badlander 25 does have a built-in IR cab clone in the back, which sounds great, but I'm not going to go over any of those sounds in this video. Mainly because I feel like that's a whole other separate category, and also every other video that you can find on the Badlander features a section where they run through all the DI sounds. So you can check any of those out if you're interested in that. But for now, back to the task at hand, and I want to start off by comparing the crush mode on the Badlander 25 to the vintage mode on the Recto-Verb. In my first video, I used the modern mode in the Recto-Verb for all the heavy sounds. So I just want to kind of cover both bases and show you how the vintage mode sounds as well. So first off, we're in the vintage mode. I have all the tone controls set to noon pretty much on the Recto-Verb, and this is what we get. Alright, so now let's compare that to the Badlander. In the crush mode, once again, all the tone controls are set pretty much to noon. Recto-Verb, Badlander. Alright, so the vintage mode on the Recto-Verb is a very kind of low MIDI kind of sound, very smooth in the top end, especially compared to the modern mode and compared to the crush mode in the Badlander. I'm not the biggest fan of the vintage mode in the Recto-Verb for rhythms, but I think it can be really cool for leads. It's got a nice kind of smooth singing sound to it. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of reverb on that. But for more tight percussive rhythm sounds, you got to go to the modern mode. So the first thing to know about switching from the vintage mode to the modern mode in the Recto-Verb is there's a huge volume jump. So I'm just going to give you a little taste of that. So right now we're in the vintage mode. I turned the reverb back off, by the way. And now I'm going to flip over to the modern mode. So yeah, that's quite a volume jump, so I'm just going to split the difference there. Now let's go back and compare that to the crush mode and the Badlander. Recto-Verb. So now we're starting to get into similar territory between these two amps. Still, I think the main difference between these two guys is in the low end. Now, I don't really think the Badlander has a very thin low end. It just kind of has a tighter low end. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you were to just like palm mute on the Recto-Verb, you can hear that low end tail out. Right? You get that woof, woof kind of sound. Whereas on the Badlander, now I'm not changing my technique at all, but you can hear the low end kind of cut off. It's still there, but it's just controlled. Let's go back to the Recto-Verb. Badlander. Right? So that's what I mean when it's got just like a tighter low end as opposed to like no low end. But let's go ahead and see if we get these two modes to sound as close to each other as we can. So first off the bat, the way the Badlander is set up right now, I don't prefer. I'm actually going to boost the presence and the treble a little bit. And also increase the gain a bit too. And this is what we got. Now, if we want the Recto-Verb to be in that kind of same territory, we're going to have to take the bass all the way off, and using a boost in the front will help too, but that's also a separate category. We're just raw dogging it tonight. So bass all the way off, scoop the mids a bit, treble up to about 2 o'clock, and same thing with the presence. I'm also going to take the gain up just a hair. And this is what we got. Back to the Badlander. Recto-Verb. So now we're kind of in the same ballpark there. I think both these amps sound great with these settings. Alright, so just to go over the exact settings for this sound, on the Recto-Verb, presence is at about 2 o'clock, 2:30, same thing with the treble. Mid is at about 10 o'clock and bass is all the way off. Gain is at about 1 o'clock. And then on the Badlander, presence, treble, and gain are all at about 2 o'clock. Mid is at about 10, and then the bass is at about 10 o'clock. Alright, so now let's compare the crunch mode on the Badlander to the pushed mode on the clean channel of the Recto-Verb. Here is the Badlander. And once again, I have all the tone controls set back to noon. Now here's the Recto-Verb. Alright, so once again, all the tone controls on the Recto-Verb set to noon as well, except the gain. You gotta crank the gain on the push mode of the clean channel to get it in the same ballpark as the crunch mode on the Badlander. So everything else though is set to noon. Back to the Badlander. So I prefer that sound a lot more. Let's go ahead and dial in the Recto-Verb to sound a little bit more like that. So starting off by backing off some mids, I'm going to take that down to about 10 o'clock. Bass down to about 10 o'clock as well. And now we got this. Now I'm going to go ahead and push the treble and the presence to about 2 o'clock. Let's see here. And add a little bit more gain too. Might as well max it out. Badlander. Recto-Verb. Alright, so there you go. Once again, in the same ballpark. Alright, now on to the cleans. I'm going to change guitars for this one. Alright, so I got the Strat out. Now we are on the clean channel of both the Badlander and the Recto-Verb. And once again, all the tone controls set to noon. And this is what we got. Let's start with the Recto-Verb. Badlander. Alright, so set like that, the Badlander obviously has more of a chimier, kind of glassier, clean sound, whereas the Recto-Verb has more of a bottom-heavy, robust kind of clean sound. I guess more what we think of as a traditional Fender-type clean sound. Now, I'm not too much of a big user of just straight-up clean sounds like this. I always have a little bit of dirt in my clean tones. But for this kind of situation, if I had to use just a straight-up clean tone, I definitely prefer the sound of the Recto-Verb. So let's see if we can make the Badlander sound a little bit more like that. So right now I'm back at the Badlander. Everything is still set to noon. First thing we do, crank the bass. So the bass is now at about 3 o'clock. Now it's at about 3 o'clock. And then I'm also going to increase the gain to about 2 o'clock. Let's also put a little bit more mids in there too, so cranking that up to my favorite position, 2 o'clock. compare that to the Recto-Verb. Back to the Badlander. Yeah, I'm really liking that sound. It's nice and warm now, but you still got a little bit of that top end chime to it. Alright, now let's see if we can do the opposite. I'm going to dial in more of a chimey kind of clean sound, and then see if we can get the Recto-Verb to sound a little bit more like that. So let's go back to the Badlander. I'm actually liking the bass at this level at about 3 o'clock. Treble is at noon. Presence is at about 1 o'clock. I'm going to take down the mids to about 11 o'clock. I'm going to keep the gain where it is, about 2 o'clock. And this is what we have. Alright, maybe a little bit more presence. Moving the presence to about 230 or so. The Recto-Verb. Alright, so right off the bat, I'm going to scoop the mids a little bit. And take the bass down to about 10 o'clock. Keeping the mids at about 10 o'clock as well. Boost the treble to 1 o'clock and the presence to about 1 o'clock as well. Let's compare that to the Badlander. Recto-Verb. Alright, not too bad. The one thing that's not going to come across in the video is the Recto-Verb feels a lot stiffer than the Badlander, especially in the clean mode. It's just kind of got like this immediate kind of attack to it, almost transistor-y kind of feel to it. It's not bad, it just is what it is. The Badlander just feels like it's got a little bit more give to it. And one last thing I wanted to touch on in this video that I didn't in the previous one is the Badlander's clean channel with the gain cranked. This is probably one of my favorite features of this amp and of this mode. The clean channel on this thing is just extremely versatile. So I got all the tone controls set to noon, but the gain is at 3 o'clock. And that gives us some killer, tweedy, bluesy kind of tones. And if we max the gain out, take the bass to about 10 o'clock, push the mids and the treble to about 2 o'clock, and the presence at about 1, we get some killer Marshall-y kind of tones out of it, and this is some of my favorite sounds out of this amplifier. Really quickly, let's go back to the PRS and see how that sounds. Alright, so there you have it, my deeper dive into the Mesa Boogie Badlander versus the Recto-Verb. Let me know once again which one is your favorite. Has your opinions changed at all since the first video? Let me know if you got any more questions. I'll be glad to make some more follow-up videos if I can. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.